for a wonderful kickoff this morning and team for a great opening. Thanks for the wonderful introduction and thank you all for another action-packed day at Amsterdam FinTech Week. My name is Connie Dorrestein. I'm a founding partner of Bankify, but today I am your host. There's a question: can the other people mute in this session because people can't hear it properly? Over to the topic of today, the SME, the backbone of our economy, the business owners of micro and small enterprises who represent actually in Holland alone 70% of the Dutch economy, both in terms of value add, but also in terms of employment contribution. Not to mention a very disproportionate contribution to tax revenue compared to large corporates and multinationals. Although, as we know, there's now some sort of a deal on the table to get large corporates to pay taxes to across Europe. So let's see. In any case, it's a sector to cherish, but also it is a sector in trouble, and not just because of COVID. The sector always troubled by lack of time, lack of money and resources, and driven by their core business, and they find that the change of pace, regulation and complexity a real burden. And a recent poll by ONL, Ondernemend Nederland, Entrepreneurial Holland, demonstrates that 27% of the sector at the moment is in serious liquidity problems. And what's worse, they're finding it very hard to find solutions for that problem. 83% does not even know where to turn for financing aid, despite a very generous set of measures by the government. And in March of last year, 24% of the sector said wholeheartedly yes when they were asked if they viewed their bank as a partner. And bear in mind, 24% is only a quarter. By now, this has dropped to 10%. And asked if the bank helps them with their liquidity issues right now, the yeses have dropped from 19 to 4%. So both the SMEs, but also the bank as their partner, are in trouble. But at the same time, 45% of the SMEs are, despite the second COVID wave, looking forward to investing. And so there is clear that there's a lot of work to do for the fintech sector. And that's why I have a wonderful, multifaceted panel for you today to hope to solve some of these issues. Because as a sector, we can help them work more efficiently and scale with the right tech in a war for talent world. So raise your hands, Mara Gaida from Software House.
Hey.
Lovely to have you. We can help merchants to quickly adapt to changing payment behavior and go from contactless to contact-free. Meet Stefan Spenkos, yes, from Buckaroo. And apart from payments, collections are key. Late payments are a major headache, and facilitating this entire process is very relevant. So meet Paul Hagens from OneLink.
Good morning, everybody.
And if finance is required, and we just heard that people don't know where to turn, it's very important to get a good overview of options on the table and some advice. So meet Stuart Lawson from Funding Options.
Morning.
And we also cannot ignore this rapidly changing world and a future with decentralized finance would, contrary to popular belief, almost immediately benefit SMEs as well, I think. As here, lenders and borrowers can meet and exchange contracts much faster based on real-time data. So meet Jelle Paul from Dusk, builders of blockchain-enabled world. And finally, yes, I will also put my 2 cents in because at Bankify, we're all about embedded banking for SMEs. So we make sure that we put the bank at the heart of the business of the customer rather than drag the customer into the bank. So in the next half hour or so, we're going to tackle some of these issues. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat or the Q&A. I heard you post more in the chat, so let me concentrate on the chat. And make sure that your questions get tabled too. And if not, I will make sure they go to the right panelists and they will contact you offline. So before we kick off, one question of introduction to all of my panelists. Why are you excited to be here around this topic of fintech and SME? And I'm going to start with Jelle.
Very excited to be here in general. I think the SME space is one that's it serves the imagination very, very well. I know in my space, in blockchain and DLT, many of the solutions are typically catered to the capital markets, right? That's where the big bucks are, etc. But there's already a lot of things going quite well for the capital markets. Hyper liquidity, fundraising is not really an issue. It's also an extremely complex ecosystem, so new technology, bringing that in is always tricky. The beauty of SME is that if you can make it simple, and if you can make something that's fundamentally valuable, you have almost a greenfield market from a tech point of view. So there's so much good work to be done, and it allows for very elegant technology implementations. So that's why I really like the space.
Okay, thanks, Jelle. Stuart.
Thanks, Connie. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. As you said, I think you hit the nail on the head. SMEs are the backbone of the economy. That's true in the Netherlands. That's true in the UK. So, I mean, it's true globally, basically. And at Funding Options, our mission is to connect those small businesses with the right funding for them. We do so by leveraging technology. I mean, we sit at the intersection of demand and supply. So really, it's combining that demand and supply in one platform and looking to provide solutions in a fast, simple, fair way for SMEs.
Okay. Thank you. Stefan.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm very much looking forward to hear from the other panel members what the SME solutions are. It is, I think, I'm completely agreeing with Jelle that it is about the tech making it seamless for SME companies, and then once it is seamless, there are many small and medium enterprises that you are able to service. So at the same time, I'm looking forward to share some more knowledge about payments industry, and of course to show that Bugru is able to facilitate SME customers in terms of payments.
Cool. Paul, you're next.
Good morning, Connie. Good morning, all viewers. OneLink Pelican, and especially myself, are very happy to be on this panel because bringing new technology to the SME is one of the fundamentals and core business of Pelican. I was on the main stage listening to Molly and to Hessel and also to what you guys are all saying. And I think indeed SME is a big market, is a backbone, and they are in need of new technology, helping and driving their business very seamless. So yeah, I'm very happy to be on this panelist. And hopefully at the end of this half hour, everybody knows what we can do to help SMEs overall.
Perfect. Marek.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm very excited to be here as well, especially because well, I am in the group of SMEs myself, and so also love to hear some of the ideas. Maybe you can use it internally, and almost all of our clients are also SMEs. So they are both from Netherlands, but from the other countries as well, from fintechs and from fintech or other branches. So I can also share some insights about how we see it, what are needs of our clients. And basically, I liked what Don said at the beginning about equipping the SMEs with the superpowers that were first reserved only for the big players. And I think we are all here to do that, to equip them with these superpowers and show them how to use it.
Perfect. So for our listeners and viewers, we've decided to break up our panel in sort of three main topics that are really core and key to all SMEs. One is about organizing your business, and whether it's good time or bad times, being really organized is massively important, because it turns out that they spend way too much time on non-core elements. So we're going to talk about that first. Then we're going to talk about payments and collections, because that is a major headache. Only 5% of people pay on time, 80% of payments are late. Often you don't even need funding if people pay on time. So those are important topics. We're going to talk about that. And then finally, we're going to obviously talk about access to finance and how we can improve that. And then obviously I keep an eye on the Q&A for you. So let's start with organizing your business, Marek, and I'm going to start with you. Your business is all around equipping business owners, large or small, with the right environment, from digital tools to the setup for their entire enterprise. What do you see is the biggest challenge for small business owners? Is it finding the right partner? Is it wrapping their head around, what do I need in terms of tools to run a business? Or is it facilitating for growth, setting up in such a way that you can actually scale?
Okay, so from my perspective, it's about growth when it really happens. I mean, maybe this should be the question for after we talk about getting this financing and getting all these things done. Then you actually need to grow and to scale, and this isn't so easy as it seems. And I think this is the biggest challenge, to actually be prepared for the scale, for the growth. I always look at it from three perspectives. It's about people, process, and technology. So you need to have a good people onboarded or working remotely, whatever. But you need to participate in this world of talent. In this world of talent, you actually need to figure the processes, and on different stages of your organization, you need to have different processes, things that worked for a small scale.
But can you give me an example of a small business company and how long it takes you to help them to go live from idea?
You mean that they are already the existing one, and they want now to scale up? Well, okay. So I think that I have one of the pandemic stories, for example, that is always very interesting. That there was this company that actually was creating. They were filming the graduation ceremonies. And they were kind of small business, but then the pandemic starts, and actually all of the graduation ceremonies were canceled, and it seems like they were on the edge of bankruptcy. But they decided that they can organize something like a online virtual ceremonies, and actually this was a huge success. Everybody wanted that. Around the world, and they needed really to scale up within 2 months, because that was the hard deadline, and we needed to scale their whole business from all the perspectives.
Okay, well that's a great example. Going to you have set up your business was set up to basically organize almost anything from an admin point around the SME. What is it you sort of do for the owner? Does he sort of register with you, or is it technology you take on board? How can he or she use your service?
Well, when we started OneLink a couple of years ago, it was mainly corporate based. And then we saw that the SME were more in need of organizing their businesses, their payment flow, their financial health checks, their insights, etc. And we saw that it should be available 24/7. It should be available on mobile, so mobile first. And then open banking came, and for the last year and a half, we put all those components together. And we came up with a complete new proposition. It's called Cube. In that application on your mobile, you can do anything you like from a payment perspective, from an admin perspective for SME. So you onboard yourself very quickly on your mobile or still on your laptop. KYC has been done. Your bank account will be checked, and then almost immediately, and via PSD2/open banking, connect all your bank accounts, and you can do your payments from salary payments to invoice payments. We also have a possibility, and I don't want to be too technical in this audience, but there is a possibility to have a financial health check, so you can directly see if you have any needs on extra money or etc. So it's totally SME based. 24/7 available, mobile first.
And the question here is that most companies have a bank. They sort of tend to do bookkeeping with something already. How do you sort of, what has been, if you ask your customers now, what has been the biggest draw for them to join you guys? Because they also need to sort of say goodbye to certain services from others again. And I know that, you know, SMEs do almost anything to avoid any level of migration.
Correct. Totally agree with you. They are very loyal to their suppliers and partners. So I think that's a good thing. But what we do is combine your partners in one app. So you don't have to say goodbye to your bank. You don't have to say goodbye to your bookkeeping program. It's just one app, and from that app you can do anything.
Yeah.
So it's just more or less your friendly partner, your digital CFO, your virtual assistant. Give it the name you like, but it's really aimed for SMEs. So when you're finished doing, because when I started, it was like at 45 to 50% of the life of an entrepreneur in a small business environment is about doing admin or non-related sales activities. So if we drop that down and you have at the end of the day when you're having dinner with your wife and your family and you put your mobile and you can check everything, it will be very helpful and it decreases your actual time on doing admin. So it's just a matter of combining all new technologies with your current partners.
Okay. By the way, it's also available for female entrepreneurs, so you can also have dinner with your husband or your partner.
Of course. And thank you, Connie.
Over to I always have to be a little bit on the lookout with that, particularly with these panels. But over to the payments and collections headache, and I want to go over to Stefan, because I've been very keen to sort of follow the changes in payment behavior during COVID, and if we see that even Germans are starting to embrace digital payments en masse, then we know something's on the move. So what is the changes in payment behavior you guys have seen at Buckaroo?
Yeah, good question. Thanks. First of all, I would like to say that if you look at the payment industry in general, the impact is very mixed. Some big companies that are operating in airline, hospitality, or offline businesses have seen huge decreases in flow. But if we're looking at e-commerce, we have seen some exponential growth. The e-commerce industry in the Netherlands grew by 7% to 26.6 billion. We saw an increase of 82% in terms of transactions online, with the biggest increase in transactions with Ideal, more than 34%. So that's 2019 versus 2020. And Corona has been the driver in the offline space for more contactless payments. So in general, it's fair to sum it up that players that are focusing on the SME industry and not so much on the offline industry or airline travel, they've seen a massive uplift in terms of customer demand and hence also in revenues.
Yeah, and I'll come back to you in a minute, but Jelle, what I still find sort of annoying always with payments, and I am a payment babe, and I understand that blockchain is not the key thing for mass volume payments, you know, that is just, the technology is not fit for that yet. But one of the big hindrances is that we have now a very complex infrastructure that's always tied to a payment type. So you either have to go credit card and why would a customer even have to worry about that? So I'm like, my question to you is, do you think that the infrastructures we now hold that are massively built on payment types are a thing of the past, and on which sort of horizon do you see changes happening there, that we can start, you know, embracing blockchain in the retail payment space as well?
It depends a little bit on the level of complexity, right, of the ecosystem that the SME is interfacing with. So as long as they are working with a larger corporate, for example, that is part of their supply chain, for example, then they will probably stick to that pace of change, because typically the dominant player in the chain decides that, right? But when you look at value in isolation or in smaller niches, SMEs amongst each other, there's a much more kind of ready-made opportunity for them to make changes. And this could be in the payment space, but also you already alluded a little bit to the issues around invoice financing. And technology can play a role there, not only in actually getting the thing paid sooner, but maybe also create like previously economically unviable business models that are now interesting because we can automate them so heavily. Things like SME invoice markets, right? Like factoring on a micro level.
Yeah.
These things start to become an option, which at least gives them a lot of fundamental alternatives to things like the traditional bank finance. So to me, it's like whether your transaction fee is 2 cents or 1 cent. I don't see that as the things that are hurting the SME at their core, right? We need to expand their tools.
But it is a race to the bottom. It's got to be around the value add. So I go back to my panel, like, where do you guys and probably Stefan again on the sort of payment side. So what value add have you been able to create for your customers around going contactless to contact sort of free?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is that if you look at the size of a customer, whether it's big or small, for a technical or for a company like us, payments, the burden, the regulatory burden is for every customer the same size. It's a big hassle, and that's also the result for the customer itself.
Yeah.
So it's important that you make it hassle-free. A seamless onboarding, automation, make sure that actually, for us, payments is very important and very interesting. And I like to talk hours about payments, but for most SME customers, it's just something that needs to be done and something that needs to be tackled. And when designing a solution for SMEs, you always have to take that in mind. Payments might be interesting for us and very important, but for the SME is running a completely different business. And if they are successful in business, they need to have payments. So it's our job to facilitate.
Yeah. Well, on that point, they need payments, but they need collections much more. They need people to pay on time. They need collections. And if that doesn't work, and there's a lot we can do around that. We can have, we already have the sort of the 30-day code, but people don't really stick to it. In fact, in the UK, they've been way more forward about that. They have the fast payment code, which is way stricter on sort of making sure people adhere to that. But if all of that fails, people need access to finance. And as I said, I was actually amazed that so many SMEs, when I saw the research, still find it hard to find help because there is so much available online, but then too much choice is not good either. So, Stuart, you have also a more multi-European view. Why is it so hard for businesses to find funding? We understand that in the banks, inside the bank network, it is tough, and it's not to put banks down because, but why is it hard to find the right partner?
Okay, great question. It's the heart of why we exist. So I think it's a number of things. And I think the pandemic has shifted behaviors a little bit, and we can talk about that in a sec. But, if we look at SMEs in general, there is this kind of hardcore of SMEs that think debt is bad. And that has kind of been shifted by the actual need to borrow finance or to borrow to access finance. So that hardcore of permanent non-borrowers has started to come down as a result of COVID. The other thing, and this is true for every market, it's true for the Netherlands, but so 75% of SMEs are declined by their bank. So that's a huge number. The problem with that is that you go to your bank for finance, you've got one chance. They've got one credit risk profile, a handful of products probably, and if you miss that, that profile, their appetite, then you get a decline. So what we're trying to do is to make it simpler. Just one application form. We'll go out. We'll search the market across a huge number of lenders.
Yeah, and so do you match along the lines of urgency type of business? Because obviously, sort of a more seasonal business has a very different profile to a full year running business. Somebody who's got a beach club on the beach, well, it's very different risk profile than somebody. So do you match on all of those parameters?
Yeah, so I mean, at the heart of what we do, everything goes through our sort of matching algorithm, our clever technology that sits at the heart of our platform, and it matches on a whole load of things. You know, how urgently do you need the money? What is the purpose of borrowing? Tell us a little bit about your company, how long you've been trading, what's your turnover, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, through that we can access a whole load of lenders and a whole load of different product types. I mean, obviously, you know, we've seen a huge demand for working capital at the outset of COVID, but actually we've also seen that change as the pandemic has rolled on, where actually, you know, we've seen the requested amount of borrowing go up considerably, and actually customers are now looking for longer tenor deals. So it's kind of this, you know, let's actually borrow to see us through to the end of the pandemic, which everybody, you know, can see in sight, and actually then sort of the growth wave that will, you know, occur afterwards, you know, sort of borrowing to actually surf that wave of growth back to health.
Okay. And Jelle, I know that there are some initiatives on the blockchain where people with a big wallet of money are putting money in a pot, and then people in, I think it's in Latin America, farmers, etc., can borrow money there. And so it's a combination of working capital and almost like, you know, charity, for want of a better word. They're finding each other on the blockchain. Are any of those sort of meeting places for borrowers and lenders active already in the sort of SME in the, you know, in the Western world that you're aware of?
Yeah, there's a few. Maturity-wise, like you said, like they're often extremely local, because then they can kind of take care of the trust function themselves, right? Where if you look at kind of know your customer in its most pure form, and if you know it's the farmer next door, then that's your problem solved, right?
Exactly.
But when you try to kind of globalize these platforms into SME borrowing and lending, then that's also where you start to kind of feel the pain point of why we have banks in a part of the existing system, is that I don't know that you are good for your debt, right, or good for your investment, that kind of thing. So we see that there's a kind of niche of SMEs that has access to this kind of DLT lending and borrowing now. It's definitely not mainstream yet, which is more of a kind of user experience problem more than anything. And then that kind of counterparty risk, that trust function, obviously we can trust the technology to settle whatever we agree on. But the fact that this counterparty player, this SME, is a good actor, kind of that's one of the biggest tricks, right? So alongside kind of debt-based financing, we also see a big rise in kind of equity-based financing, tokenizing that, making it much more cost efficient and much easier to kind of on a rolling basis get investors on board. Kind of the traditional round structure is very painful for an SME, because you kind of need to stop your business for maybe a few months to prepare it all, huge fees. Tokenization can really help you to, you know, get your aunt on board for 20K in March, and then a supplier for 100K in August, and without having to go to the notary, without having to, you know, to set that all up in a very costly and time-consuming manner.
Because this whole decentralized DNA actually, by its very nature, puts it closer to the people concerned, which is interesting. So we could do a whole separate session on that. So as we're nearing the clock of 10, let's end on a positive note. And so we see that, you know, a lot of the nearly half of the companies are saying, you know, no matter what has happened, this crisis has been an opportunity for me as well. I'm going to invest. So, Marek, you said you always also prepare for growth. Have you got a real life example of where you see that businesses are now preparing for growth and setting up? And, you know, have you got anybody that you say, yeah, you know, we see this, they are starting to organize themselves for an upward climb?
Yep, it was actually a very good year for us. It maybe not the best thing to say, but we have hands full of work right now. We are very booked. Lots of clients now want to grow or want to expand. They have lots of new ideas, especially with this borderless world, because what pandemic actually caused right now is that we lost some borders, and world seems like an open door for everybody. And I see lots of companies making use out of that, and they are growing, and they have lots of new ideas in this new world.
Yeah, Good. Well, and on the final note, I was reading this morning again in the paper that the government starts to sort of hunt down all of the people who've been fraudulent around the scheme. And we know that, there was a lot of upheaval about booking.com and they're going to pay their money back, etc., etc. And I can't help thinking, Jelle, should the government have sort of registered all the beneficiaries on a blockchain for starters so we could have tracked it properly, or has that never happened? Has that never been on the horizon?
I don't think it was on their horizon. It could have been beneficial, especially the programmability of money would help, right? So if you extend a certain amount of emergency funds to someone, but you can code effectively parameters on that money, right, and how you can spend it, and then there's not even the option to do a shady bookkeeping and still go for a big bonus or a dividend, right? Because it's we've kind of technologically secured it in the cash that you can only spend it on posts A, B, and C. So it might have been a little bit too much to ask for this round, but that doesn't mean that there wouldn't have been any benefits to it.
I think you should start knocking on the door at that level and say, hey guys, next round we can help you.
Next pandemic, we'll be there for you.
We can help it keep it clean. Well, we all know that something will happen at some point. So as the sun keeps pouring in, on a very tough and cloudy year and on a beautiful bright day, let's start with one very short upbeat message and piece of advice. So literally one line. I'm going to cut you off if you make it longer. So give us one piece of advice, give a gift to the audience as your parting thought, and they will see you back again. They will see you back again throughout the week. Marek, I'll start with you.
So in the third decade of 21st century, because we are there in the future, the real success is if you can adapt and be as flexible as possible and just see the world around you and adapt to the changing environment. And that's the key to success.
Be adaptable and agile. Paul.
Very short message from our side. Please use new technologies in your advantage.
Perfect. New technologies. Stefan.
Very short. Put the customer in a central position when designing a solution.
Customer at the center. Stuart.
Awareness of alternative finance is growing. The market's maturing. If you're an SME, we can help you. If you're a lender, we'd love to talk to you.
Okay, well, both sides of the fence. Knock on the door, Stuart. Jelle.
Just keep laser focused. Don't do anything if it doesn't fundamentally help you. The rest is all noise.
Okay, that is a very good one. And it sort of aligns with mine. And I go back to, my very stable supporter in Lies of Thought when it comes to being an entrepreneur. And it's my great friend, Winston Churchill. So never, never, never give up. So many thanks for all of you who've been with us today. Stay tuned for the many exciting elements in the program during today and the rest of the week. Thank you, Holland FinTech. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, ecosystem partners. Have a great Amsterdam FinTech week and day. Enjoy.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Che lo so live, aspetta, 34 minuti on live.